Today, we're journeying back to 1930s France, to a quiet town called Le Mans, where a story unfolded that would grip the entire nation. This is the haunting tale of the Papin Sisters, Christine and Léa, and the tragic events that transpired behind the closed doors of a respectable bourgeois home. Our story begins in 1933. Christine and Léa Papin were employed as live-in maids for the Lancelin family. Monsieur René Lancelin, a retired solicitor, his wife Lenny, and their adult daughter Genevieve, lived a life of comfort and privilege. The Papin sisters, on the other hand, inhabited a different world within the same walls. They were known for being diligent, quiet, and exceptionally loyal. For 7 years, they cleaned, cooked, and served, their lives dictated by the ringing of a service bell and the exacting standards of Madame Lancelin. Their world was incredibly small. They worked long, grueling hours, often from dawn until well past dusk. Their living quarters were a small, unheated attic room, accessible only through a back staircase. They were given 1/2 day off a week, but they rarely used it, had no friends, no social life, and their only contact with the outside world was through their employers. They were almost like ghosts in the house, silent and ever-present. This isolation wasn't just physical. It was deeply psychological. The two sisters developed an intensely close, almost suffocating bond, relying solely on each other for companionship and support. They created their own private world, a fortress against the pressures and perceived slights of their employment. Over the years, a quiet resentment began to simmer beneath their placid exterior. Madame Lancelin was known to be a demanding and meticulous mistress. She would conduct inspections with white gloves, checking for any speck of dust. Every mistake, no matter how small, was noted and criticized. This constant scrutiny, combined with their isolation, created a pressure cooker environment. The sisters' lives were a monotonous cycle of endless chores and silent endurance. They were trapped, not by physical chains, but by economic necessity and the rigid social structures of the time. The tension within the Lancelin household was building, quietly and invisibly, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Then came the evening of February 2nd, 1933. It was a cold, dark Thursday. Monsieur Lancelin was expecting his wife and daughter to return from a shopping trip and a social engagement. He arrived home around 6:30 p.m. to find the house completely dark and the front door double-locked from the inside. This was highly unusual, he called out, but received no answer. Puzzled and increasingly concerned, he went to a nearby police station to ask for assistance. Meanwhile, what had happened inside that silent house? Earlier that day, an electrical fuse had blown, causing a power outage. This was apparently not the first time the old iron had malfunctioned, and Madame Lancelin had previously refused to replace it. When Madame Lancelin and her daughter Genevieve returned home unexpectedly around 5:30 p.m., they found the house in darkness. Confrontation ensued. The exact words exchanged are lost to history. But it's believed Madame Lancelin was furious about the power failure, seeing it as another example of the maid's incompetence. For Christine and Léa, who had spent years silently absorbing criticism, this confrontation was the final spark. The years of repressed anger, frustration, and the psychological strain of their isolated existence erupted in a sudden, shocking burst of violence. The argument escalated horrifically. The sisters, in a shared frenzy, turned on their employers. The scene that followed was one of unimaginable brutality. Using a pewter pot, a hammer, and a kitchen knife they found nearby, they attacked Madame Lancelin and her daughter. After the frenzy subsided, an eerie calm descended. Christine and Léa didn't flee. Instead, they meticulously locked the doors, went up to their attic room, and removed their stained clothes. They then got into their shared bed, naked, and simply waited. It was a bizarre and chilling end to a horrific act. They didn't try to hide what they had done. It was as if the release of their pent-up rage had left them in a trance-like state. When the police finally forced their way into the house with Monsieur Lancelin, they were met with a scene of utter devastation. Upstairs, they found Christine and Léa lying together in their bed. The sisters were awake, calm, and eerily silent. When asked what had happened, Christine confessed immediately, calmly recounting the details of the event. They showed no remorse, only a strange detachment from the reality of their actions. The case of the Papin sisters became an immediate national sensation. It was more than just a crime. It was a mirror held up to French society. Newspapers were filled with lurid details, and the public was both horrified and fascinated. The case tapped into deep-seated anxieties about class conflict, the master-servant relationship, and the hidden tensions within the French family structure. Intellectuals like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir saw the sisters act as a form of rebellion, desperate, violent, lashing out against the oppressive class system that had trapped them. They were seen by some as avenging angels of the proletariat. Others, however, focused on the psychological aspect. What could drive to seemingly normal, hard-working women to commit such a terrible act? The trial brought these questions to the forefront. Medical experts were called to assess the sisters' mental state. The court learned about their difficult childhood, their family's history of mental instability, and the intense insular nature of their relationship. A condition some psychologists termed folie à deux, or a shared madness. Christine, the elder and more dominant sister, was clearly the instigator. During the investigation, she displayed erratic behavior, including having intense emotional outbursts and claiming she had experienced a similar fit of rage in a previous job. It became apparent that she was suffering from a severe mental illness. Léa, younger and more submissive, appeared to be completely under her sister's influence, following her lead without question. The court's verdict reflected this difference. Christine was sentenced to death by the guillotine, though her sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment with hard labor. She was eventually transferred to a mental asylum, where her condition deteriorated. She refused to eat and died of malnutrition a few years later, reportedly crying out for her sister. Léa, deemed to have acted under Christine's influence, received a lighter sentence of 10 years of hard labor. After her release, she went to live with her mother, changed her name, and faded into obscurity. Living a quiet life until her death in the early 2000s, the story of the Papin sisters remains one of the most famous and unsettling criminal cases in French history. It has inspired numerous books, plays, and films. But beyond the shocking details, it serves as a powerful and tragic cautionary tale. It highlights the devastating human cost of social inequality, emotional abuse, and prolonged psychological pressure. It reminds us that people can only endure so much isolation and mistreatment before something breaks. The silent house in Le Mans became a symbol of the hidden turmoil that can exist just beneath a surface of respectability and order. It's a somber lesson on the importance of empathy, fair treatment, and mental health awareness lessons that are just as relevant today as they were in 1933. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into a dark chapter of history. What are your thoughts on this complex case? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more explorations of the past. We'll see you next time.